Hi. In the last session, we defined what a nilpotent group is and we characterize the nilpotent group via the lower-Sanders series. So in this session, we discuss more on nilpotent groups and we'll see some characterization or some properties of nilpotent groups. The first lemma says that any nilpotent group is solvable, but the solvable group need not be nilpotent. That means that the set of all nilpotent group is a subset of set of all solvable group, and this inclusion is a proper inclusion. That means there are some solvable group which is not nilpotent. So let us see the proof of nilpotent group is solvable. So let G be a group which is nilpotent. We first show that G bracket I is contained in Gi for I greater than or equal to 0 using induction on I. As we know that G bracket I is actually the I plus 1th term of the commutator series of G, and Gi is the I plus 1th term of the lower-Sanders series of G. So by definition, G0 bracket 0 is equal to G and G0 is equal to G. So therefore G bracket 0 is contained in G0. Therefore the result is true for I is equal to 0. Assume the result is true for I, that means that G bracket I is contained in Gi. So we need to show the result is true for I plus 1. That means we need to show that G bracket I plus 1 is contained in Gi plus 1. By definition, G bracket I plus 1 is the commutator of Gi, G bracket I, G bracket I. But by induction assumption, we assumed that G bracket I is contained in Gi. Therefore, Gi, the commutator of Gi is contained in Gi. But Gi is a subgroup of G, so Gi is contained in G. Therefore, this commutator group is contained in Gi. But by definition, the commutator of Gi is equal to Gi plus 1. Therefore, the result is true for I plus 1. So therefore, by induction, Gi is contained in Gi for all I greater than or equal to 0. Now since G is nilpotent, Gn is equal to identity for some n greater than or equal to 0. Therefore, G bracket n is contained in Gn which is equal to I. Therefore, G bracket n is also become I identity. That means that the commutator subgroup reaches identity in a finite number of steps. So therefore, by the characterization of a solvable group, we can say that G is solvable. So now we'll check what is the example of a solvable group what is not nilpotent. We have already seen that G is equal to S3 is a solvable group. We show that this is not nilpotent. So now we'll consider the lower-Sanders series of S3. Each term of the lower-Sanders series of S3. By definition, G1 is equal to Gg, the commutator of Gg, which is equal to commutator of S3. Any element in this commutator S3 is look like, any basic generator of S3 is look like X, Y, X inverse, Y inverse, where X and Y are permutations on S3. So whatever be the permutation X and Y be, whether it is even or odd, XY, X inverse, Y inverse is always an even permutation. Therefore, the commutator of S3 is a subset of A3. But S3 is non-abelian, therefore S3, the commutator of S3 never be equal to identity. Because we know that the commutator of Gg is identity if and only if G is abelian. So S3 is non-abelian, so the commutator of S3 is not equal to identity. Therefore, the commutator of S3 is a subset of A3 which is not equal to identity. Therefore, the commutator of S3 is equal to A3. Now G2. by definition it is same as G1. That is, because G1 is equal to A3, we have the commutator of S3 A3. Same way for any X in A3, S3 and Y is in A3, XY, S inverse, Y inverse is always an even permutation, so it is contained in A3. And every element of S3 will not commute with every element of A3. Therefore, S3A3 is non-trivial. Therefore, S3A3 is equal to A3. So same way G3 is equal to G2, which is equal to commutator of S3A3 because G2 is same as A3, and same way we can show that it is equal to A3 and so on. That means that the lower center series of G is G0, that means S3 contains A3 contains A3 contains A3 and so on. That never reaches identity. Therefore, Gn is not equal to identity for any n. Therefore, S3 is not nilpotent. So we now see that any subgroup of a nilpotent group is nilpotent. So let H be a subgroup of a nilpotent group G. We prove by induction on I that Hi is contained in Gi. We prove by induction. When I is equal to 0, H0 by definition it is H, and H is a subgroup of G, so H is contained in G, and G is same as G0 by definition. Therefore, H0 is contained in G0. Therefore, the result is 2 for I is equal to 0. Assume the result is 2 for I. That means Hi is contained in Gi. Now by definition, Hi plus 1 by definition is what? It is commutator of H and Hi. But you know that H is contained in G and Hi is contained in Gi. Therefore, the commutator of HHI is contained in commutator of GGI. But by definition, the commutator of GGI is equal to Gi plus 1. Therefore, Hi plus 1 is contained in Gi plus 1. Therefore, the result is 2 for I plus 1. Hence, by induction, Hi is contained in Gi for all I greater than or equal to 0. Now, since G is nilpotent, Gn is equal to identity for some n greater than 0. Therefore, Hn is contained in Gn, which is equal to identity. That means Hn is contained in identity. That means that Hn is equal to identity. Therefore, H is nilpotent. So we now show that the quotient group of a nilpotent group is nilpotent. For showing this one, we first show that if G and H are groups and phi from G to H be a surjective group homomorphism, then Hk is contained in phi of Gk for all k greater than or equal to 0, where Hk denote the k plus 1th term of the lower center series of H. So we prove this by induction on k. So when k is equal to 0, by definition H0 is equal to H. But phi is a surjective map, so H is equal to phi of G. And G is equal to G0, so phi of G is equal to phi of G0. Therefore, H0 is contained in phi of G0. Therefore, the result is 2 for k is equal to 0. Assume the result is 2 for k. That means Hk is a subset of phi of Gk. But we know that phi of G is equal to H because phi is a surjective homomorphism. So phi of G is equal to H. Therefore, by definition, Hk plus 1 is equal to commutator of H, Hk, and H is equal to phi of G, and Hk is contained in phi of Gk by induction assumption. We have H, Hk, the commutator of H, Hk is contained in commutator of phi of G, phi of Gk. But phi is a group homomorphism. So if any element here in the commutator group, any basic generator of this one is look like phi of H, phi of Y, the commutator of phi of H, phi of Y, where H is in G and Y is in Gk. So the commutator of phi of H, phi of Y is same as phi of H into phi of Y into phi of H inverse into phi of Y inverse, because phi is a group homomorphism which is same as phi of X, Y, H inverse, Y inverse. That means phi of the commutator of xy. But the commutator of xy belongs to the commutator group of GGK. Therefore, that one is belongs to phi of the commutator of GGK. So, the set commutator of phi of GK is contained in phi of commutator of GGK because phi is a group homomorphism. But by definition, the commutator of GGK is equal to GK plus 1. That means that phi of commutator GGK is equal to phi of GK plus 1. Therefore, we proved that HK plus 1 is contained in phi of GK plus 1. Therefore, the result is true for K plus 1. Therefore, by induction, HK is contained in phi of GK for all K greater than or equal to 0. So, using this one, we can show that any quotient group of a nilpotent group is nilpotent. So, let G be a group which is nilpotent and N be a normal subgroup of G. Our aim is what? To show G mod N is nilpotent. Now consider the projection map phi from G to G mod N, which is a surjective group homomorphism. Therefore, by 1, here we prove that phi from G to H be a surjective group homomorphism, then HK is contained in phi of GK for all K greater than or equal to 0. So, that equation we indicate it by 1. So, therefore, by 1, the K here is G mod N. G mod N K is contained in phi of GK for all K greater than or equal to 0. Now, because G is nilpotent, the lower center series reaches E infinite number of steps. That means Gn is equal to identity for some n. Therefore, G mod n is contained in phi of Gn by 1. But Gn is equal to the trivial group, so which is same as phi of trivial group. And the trivial group goes to trivial group in G mod n. So, G mod n is equal to trivial group in G mod n. Therefore, G mod n is nilpotent. So we have shown that if n is a normal subgroup of G and G is nilpotent, then G mod n is nilpotent. That is, quotient group of a nilpotent group is nilpotent. We now see an example for which G is not solvable, but G is not nilpotent, but n and G mod n are nilpotent. So that means we need to find a group G which is not nilpotent, but some normal subgroup n of G is nilpotent and corresponding quotient group G mod n is also nilpotent. For example, G is equal to S3. We have seen that S3 is not nilpotent. And take n is equal to A3, which is a normal subgroup of S3. Since n is equal to A3, which is of order 3, which means that it is cyclic, so it is abelian, so it is nilpotent. And G mod n has order 2, so it is cyclic, so abelian, therefore it is nilpotent. So both n and G mod n are nilpotent, but G is not nilpotent. But this is not the case when G is solvable. There we have shown that if n and G mod n are solvable, then G is solvable. So, but that is not true in the case of a nilpotent group. That means there are some n and G mod n which are nilpotent, but the group G is not nilpotent. We now show that the homomorphic image of a nilpotent group is nilpotent. That means that if phi is a map from G to H be a group homomorphism and G is nilpotent, then phi of G is nilpotent. That we want to prove. That means we want to show that homomorphic image of a nilpotent group is nilpotent. So let us consider a map group homomorphism phi from G to H and assume that G is nilpotent. So that means that Gn is equal to identity for some n. What is our aim? To show that phi of G is nilpotent. So we first show by induction on K that phi of G K, which is contained in phi of Gk. That means that k plus 1 the term of the lower center series of phi of g is contained in the image of k plus 1 the term of the lower center series of g. So this we prove by induction on k. When k is equal to 0, by definition phi of g0 is equal to phi of g, and by definition g equal to g0. Therefore phi of g0, which is equal to phi of g, and that is same as phi of g0. Therefore phi of g0 is contained in phi of g0. So therefore the result is true for k is equal to 0. Assume the result is true for k, that is phi of gk is contained in phi of gk. Now we want to show the result is true for k plus 1. That means we want to show that phi of gk plus 1 is contained in phi of gk plus 1. By definition of phi of gk plus 1, we have phi of gk plus 1 is equal to the commutator of phi of g, phi of gk. But you know that phi of gk is contained in phi of gk. So the commutator of phi of g and phi of gk is contained in phi of commutator of phi of g, phi of gk. Because phi is a group homomorphism, commutator of phi of g, phi of gk is contained in phi of commutator of ggk. But by definition ggk is equal to gk plus 1. So this is equal to phi of gk plus 1. Therefore phi of gk plus 1 is contained in phi of gk plus 1. Therefore the result is 2 for k plus 1. Hence by induction phi of gk is contained in phi of gk for all k greater than or equal to 0. Now since g is nilpotent, gn is equal to identity or the trivial group. So phi of gn is contained in phi of gn, which is equal to phi of identity trivial group and which is a trivial subgroup of H. So phi of gn is equal to the trivial group. Therefore the lower center series of phi of g terminate or reaches the trivial group in a finite number of steps. That means phi of g is nilpotent. So here we prove that if we have proved that the quotient group of a nilpotent group is nilpotent. But if n and g mod n are nilpotent does not imply that g is nilpotent. But here we are going to show a special case that if g mod center of g is nilpotent, then g is nilpotent. So let us see the proof of this. Suppose g mod center of g is nilpotent. Our aim is what? To show that g is nilpotent. That means you want to show that the upper centers series of g reaches g in a finite number of steps. Let us take the upper center series of g, which is z0 of g contained in z1 of g, contained in z2 of g, etc. Let us denote the center of g by z. That means z1 of g is also z. So we first prove that, it is given that the g mod center of g is nilpotent. So the upper center series of g mod center of g reaches g mod center of g in a finite number of steps. And our aim is to prove that the upper center series of g reaches g in finite number of steps. So we need to have a relationship between the upper center series of g mod center of g and the upper center series of g. So we prove that relation by induction on k. What is that relation? It says that zk of g mod z. That means the k plus 1th term of the upper center series of g mod z, which is same as the quotient group with quotient group zk plus 1 of g mod z, where zk plus 1 of g is what? It is the k plus 2th term in the upper center series of g. So we prove this relation between the upper center series of g mod z and the upper center series of g by induction on k. So when k is equal to 0, z naught of g mod z is same as the identity of g mod z, which is same as z, which is same as z mod z, but z is same as z1 of g. So we can write it as z1 of g mod z. So g naught of g mod z is same as z1 of g mod z. Therefore the result is 2 for k is equal to 0. Now we assume the result is 2 for k. That means zk of g mod z is equal to zk plus 1 of g mod z. Now our aim is what? To show the result is 2 for k plus 1. That means we want to show that zk plus 1 of g mod z is equal to zk plus 2 of g mod z. So let us take one element from zk plus 1 of g mod z. Let it be hz. So let hz belongs to zk plus 1 of g mod z. Then the coset of hz with zk of g mod z belongs to the quotient group zk plus 1 of g mod z mod zk of g mod z. But by the definition of the upper center series, this quotient group is same as the center of g mod z mod zk of g mod z. This means that the coset of hz belongs to the center. That means that element will commute with each element of this quotient group. Therefore, for any yz belongs to g mod z, yz into the coset of yz commute with hz for every yz belongs to g mod z. That means that hz zk g mod z into yz zk g mod z is equal to yz zk g mod z into hz zk g mod z. That means that here, after using the multiplication of the coset, you will get hz into yz, that is same as xy into z, into zk of g mod z is equal to here yz yxz into zk of g mod z. That means that if I take it to the left hand side, I'll get x inverse y inverse xyz into zk of g mod z is equal to zk of g mod z. That means that the commutator of x inverse y inverse into z, that means the coset of x inverse y inverse, the commutator of x inverse y inverse belongs to zk of g mod z. But by induction assumption, zk of g mod z is same as zk plus 1 of g mod z. That means that the commutator, the coset of the commutator x inverse y inverse belongs to the quotient group zk plus 1 of g mod z. That means that x inverse y inverse, the commutator of x inverse y inverse belongs to zk plus 1 of g. That means that x inverse y inverse into xy belongs to zk plus 1 of g. That means that x inverse y inverse xy into zk plus 1 of g is equal to zk plus 1 of g. So after bringing this x inverse y inverse to the right hand side, we get xy into zk plus 1 of g is equal to yx zk plus 1 of g for all y belongs to g. That means that x, the coset of x is in the center, it commutes with every element of g mod zk plus 1 of g. That means x z, the coset of x, which is x zk plus 1 of g, belongs to the center of this quotient group. But by the definition of the upper center series, this center is same as zk plus 2 of g mod zk plus 1 of g. So the coset x zk plus 1 of g belongs to this quotient group zk plus 2 of g mod zk plus 1 of g. That means that x belongs to zk plus 2 of g. Therefore, hz belongs to zk plus 2 mod z. If you reverse this statement, we can prove that if hz belongs to zk plus 2 of z, then SZ belongs to ZK plus 1 of G mod Z. So using these two ways, inclusions, we get ZK plus 1 of G mod Z is equal to ZK plus 2 of G mod Z. So therefore, the result is true for K plus 1. So by induction, Zk of G mod Z is equal to Zk plus 1 of G mod Z for all K greater than or equal to 0. So we call this equation as 2. Now it is given that G mod Z is nilpotent. That means that the upper center series of G mod Z reaches G mod Z in a finite number of steps. That means that there exists n greater than 0 such that Zn of G mod Z is equal to G mod Z. But by 2, what is Zn of G mod Z is same as Zn plus 1 of G mod Z. Therefore, G mod Z is equal to Zn plus 1 of G mod Z. Therefore, G is equal to Zn plus 1 of G. That means that the upper center series of G reaches G in a finite number of steps. Therefore, by definition, G is nilpotent. So using this, that means here we proved that if G mod center of G is nilpotent, then G is nilpotent. We see one application of this lemma. So we have to prove that any finite P group is nilpotent. A P group means what? A group of order P raised to n, where P is a prime number. So let G be a group such that order of G is equal to P raised to n, where n is greater than or equal to 1. Our aim is what? To show that G is nilpotent. That means we need to show that we want to show that the Gn is nilpotent. G is nilpotent. That means the previous lemma says that G mod center of G is nilpotent, then G is nilpotent. So it is enough to show that G mod center of G is nilpotent. So we prove by induction on n that G is nilpotent. When n is equal to 1, then order of G is equal to P. Therefore, G is a cyclic group. Therefore, G is abelian. Therefore, G is nilpotent. Suppose n is greater than 1. Then G is a P group with P raised to n. Order of G is P raised to n with n greater than 1. Therefore, G has a non-trivial center. Therefore, the order of center of G is greater than or equal to P. Therefore, order of G mod center of G is P raised to K for some K less than n. Therefore, by induction assumption, G mod center of G is nilpotent. Therefore, by previous lemma, G is nilpotent. So we prove that any finite P group is nilpotent. That's all for the day. Thank you.